Hello everybody, and today we will be ranking every Mario Kart Double Dash course. Now Mario Kart Double Dash is probably one of the best track selections. While only having 16 tracks, the quality of these tracks are really good. In fact, there aren't even any D tier tracks. We are actually going to start at the C tier today, considering how good this game's track selection is. But there has to be at least one dud in this masterpiece of a track selection. That's what the C tier track is for. Dry desert is pretty boring. It is just your standard desert track with like a tornado, which makes it a little interesting, and that weird piranha plant whirlpool thing. The cactuses do bend over, which does make it from a nice challenge. But I feel like this track just isn't all that good. It doesn't really have anything going for it except for the tornado and stuff. At least it could be worse. The Mario Kart 8 version of this track exists and is D tier because they got rid of literally the tornado and the piranha plant, making this track just an uninteresting track in all areas. At least this track's a little interesting, which gives it a C tier edge and makes it a 5 out of 10 track. But now we're moving on to the B tier tracks already. Like there's only one bad track in this game. It's crazy. All the other 15 tracks in this game are all pretty good, starting out with number 15's Peach Beach. Now, Peach Beach is one of the most infamous tracks in Double Dash, which is known for the Cataquack obstacles, which are pretty interesting obstacles. They throw you way up in the air, and then you have to and you have to try and dodge them, or else because they really slow you down when they throw you up in the air. This track is pretty good, but it's definitely the least interesting track in this game, being having a very simple layout and not much other things going for it. Number 14, we have Luigi Circuit, which is also a pretty interesting track. See, unlike other Luigi circuits, this time when you go out into the middle of the track, the section you have to go forward and backwards the same way. Basically, it's like two circles connected to a path and then another circle. You drive down over the jump, down the path, and around the circle, and then come back. Meaning that you could get hit by last place items going the same or going opposite directions as you, hitting you. Because of how that works, you will actually be able to go, which makes the track pretty interesting. You get hit by Bowser shells and stuff a lot easier because this track is pretty small and has that interconnected middle part. At number 13, we have Sherbet Land, which is one of the most overhated tracks in this game. People usually hate on this track because they say it's too difficult because of the ice physics, but I personally have never had any problems with the ice physics in this track. This track is completely normal. I mean, there are definitely ice physics, but they aren't that bad. Like, if you think this track is bad because the ice physics are annoying, get better, bro. This track is pretty good. Anyway, this track really is a nice vibe track. This track just gives you those nice winter vibes that I really like about it. It doesn't have anything else going for it. I mean, the freezies at the end are brutal, which is crazy. I love those things. It's crazy how much of an obstacle they are because they freeze you temporarily, which is I think is really funny. So that's really why this one is in B tier. Number 12, we have Mario Circuit. And this one's pretty nostalgic for me, but the Mario Kart Wii version of this track. They're basically the same thing, though, but just wanted to put that out there. This track weirdly has vibes that I really like for no reason. I actually never have understood why I like this track so much, but like, I just do. It's just a fun Mario circuit. It has a bunch of terrain changes and those Goombas at the end. It's a pretty fun track, and I like the tunnel section, the chain chomp. It's a pretty brutal obstacle, which I really like about this track. A lot of people don't like this track because of the oversaturation of circuits on the Wii, but I think that this game, Mario Circuit, is really good, and the fact that it gets overshadowed by the other two retro Mario Circuits in the Wii, even though this is the best Mario Circuit on the Wii, because Mario Circuit Nitro is just a figure eight, and Mario Raceway is boring, and Mario Circuit 3 is boring. So this one's pretty interesting. It's probably the most interesting Mario Circuit in Mario Kart Wii, but also a pretty interesting Mario Circuit for Double Dash to have. Number 11, we have Bowser's Castle. And usually Bowser's Castle tracks are pretty good, but this one I feel like is pretty boring. Not much happens in this track. There's a few thwomps along the way. There's that one spinny part with the fire bars that spin, and that final section where Bowser breathes fire at you. But other than that, this track is kind of long, and it doesn't need to be as long as it is. I don't really care for this track as much, but it's still a pretty good track. It's still a B tier course, but I just think that other tracks in this game are better, and there are many of other better Bowser's Castle tracks in this series. At number 10, we have Yoshi Circuit. And Yoshi Circuit's really cool because it's shaped like a Yoshi. And now, I'm not going to go like, oh, just because of the shape, it's really good. I like the Yoshi shape makes for a pretty interesting layout. Like, you to like go around some pretty weird turns because of it, which makes for a pretty interesting circuit track. Also, I like how it's just on one island shaped like a Yoshi. It's just so fun. And it's crazy to me that people actually, it took a while for people to actually realize, so for some people to actually realize this. Like, people who have had Double Dash since they were like a wee lad, they are still like, wait, it's shaped like a Yoshi? But yeah, that's what makes this track so fun and a pretty good, but it's still a B tier course because it's still a circuit track and doesn't have anything else going for it besides this Yoshi shape. The A tier tracks are coming up on us, and there's not as many as for B tier for some reason. But at number 9, we have Daisy Cruiser. Now, Daisy Cruiser, in my opinion, is one of the more overrated tracks of this game. This track is kind of it's pretty good. It's a pretty nice theme, but I feel like it definitely does have a few dull bits, like that final turn, or the engine, I mean the engine room's fine, but like the turn above the engine room. If you don't go in the engine room, which is slower to go in the engine room, so why would you? Then it just feels like, I don't know, this track isn't the greatest thing ever, but it's still a pretty good track, and I really do like it. It is a really fun idea. The remakes are worse though, because they made it so that the pool isn't out of bounds, and now there's a second pathway at the beginning, which is the easier pathway now is the second pathway. But like, come on. It was so cool to have only one pathway here to make it more difficult. Number 8, we have Mushroom Bridge, which honestly, this whole track is pretty good because of the cars, which are pretty big cars in this track. And Double Dash has pretty good cars, like pretty good sized cars. Like the Wiggler car is one of my favorites because it's so big, it's just a giant vehicle and like you have to dodge it. But the real kicker with this track is that you get to go on the sides of the bridge, as maybe you could see in the image by the dash panels on the bridge. You can go on the sides of the bridge. It makes for a really nice but really challenging shortcut. Like it looks easy when you watch someone do it, but then when you do it yourself, you realize how challenging it is. But it's a pretty good challenge, and it can, being the last end part of the track, can make or break your playthrough. If you fall off that shortcut when you try to go through it on the third lap, you're just doomed, bro. Which I think is really a really cool part of this track. Number 7, we have Wario Coliseum, which is kind of a little overrated again, just like with Daisy Cruiser. And I think this track is pretty fun. I love all the twists and turns, and it's such a nice, fun track. But it's not S tier though. I feel like there are still some dull parts that make it filler, because this track is so long that that's only 2 laps instead of 3. But I feel like they were just kind of forcing it at that point, and there definitely could have been a third lap if they cut down some of the more boring parts of this track that aren't as windy as the rest of the track. But I feel like they didn't do that, which is kind of the problem with this track. And now we're moving on to the S tier courses, which there are a pretty fair amount of in this game. Starting at number 6, we have Mushroom City. Mushroom City has a pretty cool gimmick too. It along with having giant cars to dodge, it's just like Mushroom Bridge. This one also is a pretty cool track because it has different pathways that you get to take. This one has like basically just to choose a bunch of different pathways, and it's really cool, and it feels like a real city. The cars are still a brutal obstacle, and this track is better because, I don't know, I like the branching paths more than I like just a bridge at the end. Number 5, we have Baby Park. And now you may be wondering, how in the world did an oval get to be the 5th place track in this game? Like, how did it? You might be wondering. Well, I'll explain how. Basically, this track is crazy because it's very small, and Double Dash is the game with all the crazy items, and the carts are bigger in Double Dash, being 2-person carts, because that's like the whole gimmick of the game. So you can get hit by items a lot more sporadically, making this track actually pretty difficult, and the items are pretty cool obstacles. Also, I think it's really funny that they decided to put this track in the Mushroom Cup and I feel like they knew how difficult it would be because of the items. They knew how crazy this track would end up, and they were right. I feel like this track was not designed to just be an oval. I think they'd actually designed it for this purpose, to be like this. And also, I like how the middle part, to create the oval, I didn't just go over it. There's like, nah, we're going to go over it. which is crazy. And all these newer versions of this track just are kind of got it not as well because the item selection, either the item selection isn't crazy enough, or um, they made it so you can't go over the side things anymore, which is kind of disappointing that this track never got a perfect remake. But in Mario Kart World it could, considering that was 24 racers. 24 Racer Baby Park would be insane. Anyway, at number 4, we have Dino Down Jungle. And now this one, some people say isn't themed around dinosaurs enough, but I honestly don't care. It's still a good track. You gotta dodge the feet, you go through that crazy windy bridge section, which is like actually pretty difficult, and you wouldn't expect it to be that difficult. And then you also have then you have the geyser section, and the bridge, and then the final turn. But I feel like this track has been ruined in this Mario Kart World remake. Like, don't get me wrong, the setting is a lot more interesting, being a Jurassic Park-based dino lab in a jungle instead of just dinosaurs for no reason. But the Brachiosaurus isn't always there. I mean, I think his name's Doshi. Doshi isn't always there, and the geysers now you can trick off of, like in Mario Kart Tour, which I don't like. But overall, it's still a pretty good track, and the theming's better. But this version of the track is the definitive version for the sole reason of having stuff like this with the crazy obstacles and windy bridges, which don't really get to return in its Mario Kart World version. But the Mario Kart 7 version is a pretty good adaptation considering they changed like nothing. Number 3, we have Waluigi Stadium. And now this track is actually kind of a little underrated, I think, in the modern Mario Kart eyes. People are just talking about other tracks in this game, but they forget about Waluigi Stadium, which is really fun. There's a lot of jumps. I know tricking isn't a thing yet, but the jumps are still pretty fun to go over. And the fire bars are great obstacles, and the sideways piranha plants. And hot take, the Mario Kart 8 version isn't as good as the original because the obstacles are smaller and the track's smaller. And I feel like it's too small. I do like the new ending bits that they added, but I feel like this version is the best version of the track besides the Wii version, of course, because they added tricking, which made it even better. But this track is pretty good, even without the tricking, which is a really great feat for a stadium track that existed before Mario Kart Wii for being such a good track. Number 2, we have DK Mountain. Now, this track is widely considered as the best course in the game, and it is really fun. The mountain, it's getting shot up to the mountain, and then the fact that, like, how floaty Double Dash is, every, like, slight bump in the ground, because there's a lot of them on that mountain, on that rocky mountain, that makes it that, like, you, like, go in the air to the slightest bump, which is really cool, and I really like it. The track's also really windy and fun for Double Dash. It definitely got slightly worse each time, because the Wii version, the controls are still a little floaty, but not as floaty. I don't like how they brought this back in 8, though, because, like, the controls aren't floaty enough for this track to actually feel good to play in 8. But the original version is really good with the floaty, with the rocky bumps and the windy turns, which is why I think it's the second greatest track in this game. But the best track in this game is Rainbow Road. And now, a lot of people actually don't like this Rainbow Road because apparently it's like a glorified figure 8 or something. When it's like, no, there's a lot more to this track. This track is crazy. The music in this track is excellent. I love the background music in this track. One of the best Mario Kart background songs ever. I mean, Rainbow Roads usually do that, but this track specifically. All the dash panels scattered throughout the track make this track really fun, but there's also some crazy tight turns that you have to take, and you can't even drift on one of them because of how crazy they are, which is really crazy. It makes for a really good challenge. This track is really good and is honestly a really great Rainbow Road and one of the best tracks in the series because of the windy turns and the boost panels, and that giant cannon at the end. The fact that stars can just fall on the track is crazy. And yeah, this track is kind of crazy. This track is really crazy, which I really like. And it's the first Rainbow Road, besides Super Circuit. I mean, Super Circuit also had Rainbow Road. I feel like at this point they realized that the Rainbow Road's supposed to be windy and crazy. This and Super Circuit's Rainbow Road did that for the first time. And I feel like they definitely did a good job at cementing Rainbow Road's legacy and not having it be forgotten to time. So that's it for today's video, and thanks for watching. What game's next again? Oh, DS. Oh no. Let me just say that Mario Kart DS track selection is overrated and bad, and I will explain in the next video. I'm going to end this off of a hot take this time, because I think that's cool. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week.